This is your class live project video for your project New Deal. Here we have a picture of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was the president who enacted the New Deal. So your project should probably mention him. This was part of his campaign buttons. When you're writing this project, the first thing I want you to do is decide on a thesis. The simple way to figure out what your thesis is going to be is to say, what is this essay asking me to do? This is a direct quote from your assignments. It says, using your knowledge of the era and research, pick 3 aspects of Roosevelt's New Deal and write an essay of 500 words or more explaining how the New Deal altered the traditional relationship between government and its citizens that had existed prior to the Great Depression. So the whole purpose of your essay is to discuss the shifting relationship between government and citizens as a result of the New Deal. There were so many new acts and agencies that really changed the foundation of American life and inherently changed the relationship between government and citizens in a very significant way. The next thing I want you to do is to choose your main points. So you need to select 3 acts or agencies. There are several links in this assignment that are hyperlinked to lists of agencies that come with brief explanations. This is where some research needs to happen. Once you've selected the agencies or acts you want to write about, research them. You should be able to explain what these acts or agencies do and how they or their existence might have changed the fabric of government and citizenry. And you need to be able to explain and understand those things. Having a superficial knowledge of them isn't going to cut it. You need to have a little bit of depth there. And again, that's where some research comes in. I'm not asking you to know everything, but you should know a decent amount about the acts and agencies you've selected. Writing your essay, the first paragraph you're going to do is your introduction. I think with historical essays, it's personal opinion, I think you should always start with background information about what it is you're talking about. There are other options. You can start with just facts, questions. Like I said, historical essays, I'm a big fan of background information. If you're going to start with background information, a great place to start is information about the Great Depression. The whole point, why do we have the New Deal? To combat the Great Depression. You could talk about Franklin Roosevelt and his ascent to power. You could talk about Herbert Hoover and how his presidency was a big old mess. You have a lot of really great options to kind of set the stage for where it is you're heading with your essay. So utilize it. When you're writing your body paragraphs, start with your topic sentence. This will be some sort of commentary on the act or agency you've selected. Explain that act or agency and what it does. Give examples of how it changed the relationship and an explanation of how this fundamentally changed the relationship between government and people. So if we're talking about, for example, the Social Security Administration, the Social Security Administration is the government entity that sends out money to people who generally are too old to work. They've paid into Social Security and now they get checks from the government. It's kind of like a government pension. And before the Social Security Administration was created, if you were old and you couldn't work, your family had to take care of you or you died. You could be homeless, you could try and rely on a church, but for the most part, you would just kind of starve to death. And this was the reality of life. Well, when the Great Depression came about, old people were some of the first people to lose their jobs because they can't work as hard, they can't produce as much. And so it really, part of the New Deal was to try and say, how can we help these people who can't really help themselves? And the Social Security Administration really went about trying to help the elderly, the disabled, widowed, who needed the assistance. And how this fundamentally changed the relationship between government and people is now Social Security has become something we rely on. Some people don't even plan for retirement because they think, oh, I'll get Social Security and the government will send me a check every month and that's how I'm going to live. In reality, Social Security is not meant to replace a retirement fund. It's meant to kind of supplement. But it's fundamentally changed the way we think about government. We think that the government owes us. Because we've worked our whole lives, we've paid into the system, and dang it, the government should have to pay us back. We've created and helped the economy, and the government acknowledges that with Social Security. So it's kind of an example of how you might want to talk about the agencies or acts that you've selected. Remember, it says give an explanation of how it changed the relationship, but go in and talk about how it fundamentally. So you can say initially, it changed the relationship because old people are getting money again during the Great Depression, which is a good thing. It's, stimulating the economy. And long term, it changed because blah, blah, blah. So don't just talk about short term or just long term changes. Talk about both. You need to discuss both of these factors. Writing your conclusion, again, it's pretty simple, very similar to the introduction, your thesis, your main points, which are the acts or agencies you've selected, and some closing background information. This can be a discussion of the end of the Depression, leading into World War II, how FDR saved us, how Herbert Hoover was a goon. However it is that you want to close that up is kind of your call. Some final thoughts for this essay. Make sure you tell us who the president is who initiated the New Deal. Explain information about the Great Depression. There are certain things that I can expect to find in your essay. The president and an explanation of the Great Depression are the very, very least. World War II should probably come up. There's some basic information that your essay should probably include. Please, I'm begging you, reread your essay. Read it out loud, read it to a friend, have a friend read it to you, have a parent read it to you, read it to a parent, call me, read it to me, I'll email it to me, and I'll read it to you. Reread your essay. It helps if you read it out loud so that you catch any awkward, junky, funky words or sentences. And finally ask yourself, does this essay prove that I know about the New Deal? If you're rereading your essay and you're finding yourself saying, yeah, this isn't really clear, it's kind of vague, there are probably places I could expand, do it. Vague essays aren't good essays. Essays should be clear and focused and demonstrate that you know what you're talking about. If your essay does not fulfill those parameters, rewrite it. Don't be afraid to rewrite your essays. Good writers rewrite. So I can't say it enough. Make sure that your essay fulfills your requirements. And there you go. That's your Project New Deal class live. If you have questions or concerns, let me know. Otherwise, I will be seeing you in class.